Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Back Shed Bible Study. This is Monday, July 13th, 2020. We are in episode 16, and episode 16 means we've been in COVID for 17 weeks so far. Oh, God bless us all. Oh, I am thrilled to have with me myself, who's going to be down here below. And but much more importantly, Steve Heller is here with us. Steve, welcome to the Back Shed. It is so good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you. And here's how we're going to do this. I am going to spotlight this video right over here. And I'm going to mute some other things here, and some people have asked us to go on a tour. We're going to go on a tour. Okay. Sorry, but we have all kinds of crazy feedback going on. So a lot of you have asked about, wanted details on the kitchen remodel. So we're going to do a little kitchen remodel tour here. And this is super spontaneous here. There we go. All right. We're in the backyard now. We're going to come inside. Let's be sure that everybody's dressed appropriately. Okay. There's the family's right over there. Okay. Say hi, everybody. Hi. And this is the Back Shed. We're live on the Back Shed. Awesome. Steve, are you still with me?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So this is especially for Donna. Donna's the one who says, I want to hear what's going on in the kitchen. We took this entire kitchen, ripped it down to the studs. Thank you, Titus. That was the right word. And tore everything out. Now we're doing all new cabinets and all that. This is the beautiful floor I got to put in last week. And we finished facing these cabinets last night. We got those up there, and then the countertops come tomorrow. So there you go. Bye, family. Everybody's thrilled here. So now I got to figure out how to get us back into the shed. There we are. And so we head back into the shed, and I'm going to turn everything off with this. There you go. See, that's where we are. And there you all are. And there's feedback. It's awesome. So we're going to leave this meeting. There we go. Right? Was that awful or what? Okay. Welcome back. All right. Let's, I'm going to flip a little switch here, and we're going to go back. Okay. So there we go. Our viewing public had demanded that that I show them the kitchen. So that has been what I've been obsessing over for literally the last month, Steve. We'll switch here, and we tore it apart 4 weeks ago from last Friday, and everyone says plan, like twice as much time. We allotted 3 weeks. It's probably going to take 6 weeks. So,
all right,
there you go.
Fun times.
So that's the kitchen, but more importantly, I am thrilled to have Steve on here. And Steve, we're going to have some fun today. We have some good people watching on. And the thing I love about doing the Back Shed Bible Study live is that we can interact with people that are, oh goodness gracious. My dog is chewing everything up. Hold on. Sunshine, stop.
One of the perks of a live presentation.
Right?
Right.
So Sunshine, the puppy, who is almost 4 months old, is a pure delight and joy. And she has she started chewing on this here a minute ago.
Impressive.
So,
that's nice.
Another project that I have for the future when I have nothing else to do here in the backyard. Sunshine, you want to come up and see everybody? All right, come on, girl. Come here. Let's go interact with the world. There we go. So this is Sunshine the pup. She is Steve, you probably haven't seen this girl before, but she is they call her a Goldador.
Goldador. All right.
Goldador. So she's half Labrador and half Golden Retriever. So
Excellent.
yeah, she's
Excellent.
got beautiful parents. She has she's
That,
developing a,
that's kind of egotistical, right? Talking about you and your wife that way. Beautiful parents. I mean, really.
this is
You
going
told
to
me
be
to bring
fun.
it.
This is going to be fun today. Oh my goodness, I can already tell this is going to be fun. So Steve, we let's talk a little bit about what happened last week. So Steve goes back and watches last week's just to see kind of how we do this, and basically tells me that I threw him under the bus because apparently I got my wires mixed up here and thought that Steve was coming on last week instead of this week, and when Steve confirmed it was this week, I rushed down the street and found my neighbor Tim Dakin, and he joined us. But in your words, Steve, I threw you under the bus.
You threw me under the bus. I mean,
Right.
it was like, it was all my fault that obviously Steve's having a senior moment. I get it. I see what you were doing, but
Right.
we should pay for my dry cleaning, and that massage, because, that bus on my back, when it rolled over was a little hard on me, but
You go to a dry cleaner? I can't tell.
Yeah, that's one of the perks of working remotely is I can't remember the last time I wore jeans.
Oh my goodness, I can't remember oh my goodness, I have been guilty of filming sermons during this season with shorts on.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's kind of if there are a few people in our church that may not be too happy if they found out that the pastor was preaching a sermon with shorts on, but I have done that.
I'm glad you clarified, because the other way to say that is I taught with no pants on, and it's just awkward. People just think the worst. And thanks for clarifying that.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's get on to a couple of things. And I want to say hi and greet some of our dear friends. Angie Bessenbacher is joining us this morning. Donna Dude,
Hey,
Sharon Soden, David Kasprick, Valerie Connor. Valerie Connor, just so you know, is fantastic. She provides us some of the absolute best commentary as we go through the day. Randy Pels is on, and
hey, Randy.
And others will be joining us. So it's David Kasprick, good friend over there. Valerie, it's over 100 degrees. You are forgiven, she says. Anyway, so Steve Heller, old friend of Sunrise. You and your family attended Sunrise for several years, and then you somehow found a way to another church down the road.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to talk about that. But tell me, what are you up to these days, and what is your family up to these days?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for asking. And as I had mentioned, I think when I had the pulpit back in October, that Sunrise will always be home, to me. And Heather and I met in the career class. We ended up having, both our kids were dedicated on that stage, and super involved in honeymooners with the Brockharts and with the Canoines and Couples in Christ. I think that's a lot of where my teaching skills started to be developed, was under Dan, and just some great memories, some great chapters. I would have never, if somebody had said at the beginning, Steve, you're going to be teaching, and you're going to be the elder, and you're going to chair the elder, and you're going to do this capital campaign, and you're going to start this organization called Men in HD. I'd be like, you're smoking dope. I don't know what you're on, but that's just not the reality of who I am as this master sinner that I am. But God wrote some awesome chapters at Sunrise, and it was a real blessing. And obviously we made the move because the kids were in junior high and high school, and that chapter's almost wrapping up. So we'll see where God takes us to next.
Yeah, I never had the privilege of being around when you attended Sunrise, but you might as well have been. When I showed up 6 years ago, you were a name that I was hearing about almost every day and got to know you fairly quickly. And obviously, Sunrise participating in Men in HD is a big part of that. But tell us a little bit about your kids. What
Yeah, no,
are they up to?
yeah,
You've
yeah.
got
Thanks
one
for. I got
in
two kids.
Arizona.
Yeah, I got Jake, who is a scrapping 6'4" mechanical engineer down at ASU. About ready to start his junior year, and is doing an internship this summer up in Cameron Park with a firm. And so it's been neat to see him kind of transition, from parents' faith to college faith, and all the I don't want to say struggles, but all the temptations that come with that. But it's neat to see him grow in his faith. And then Hannah is a senior doing varsity volleyball. She's really got radar lock on Boise State. Wants to do nursing up there. And we'll see how that morphs. It's a lot of work. She came home last summer from a 3-week Young Life commitment down in, I think she was down at the Arizona Young Life facility for 3 weeks volunteering. And she came back and she's
a gorgeous facility.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen it, but I have heard it is amazing.
Nuts. Yeah. That place is, I can't even remember what it's called. It's outside of Flagstaff. It is.
Yeah. And so she came back and she says, I hope you don't mind, Dad and Mom, but I think I'm done with volleyball. And mind you, I've been coaching her volleyball since she was 4th grade and club. And I just really thought she could play, Division II, Division III level. And
so are you one of those dads that like you went all in and just going, volleyball is going to be it. It's going to pay for college. It's I'm going to invest tens of thousands of dollars into all this traveling and time and all that. And
I mean, we wrote all those chapters. We did a lot of the travel team stuff, and great memories. We developed some great friends in it. I really drove it because that's my sport. I love coaching, especially I think junior high volleyball is probably my sweet spot. And, I grew up at Biola, so every Saturday we were studying down at the beach and writing a lot of documents while we were learning how to play, 2-on-2 volleyball in the sand.
I remember those days very, very well. That was great days down there. And I made some of my best friends down there on the volleyball courts at Biola too. So So I digress for a second, but did you grow up watching Karch Kiraly and Dusty Dvorak and all of those guys play back in the day?
Yeah, funny you'd say that because because I was at Biola 82 to 86, and then when I graduated, I worked my way over to the 7-Eleven corporate office, and so I worked my way up to being a buyer. And so you can only imagine in the early 90s. I was a buyer for 1,100 stores, and I had tickets coming across my desk all the time. And so, I mean, I was down at some of those AVP volleyball tournaments. I had tickets to any concert. I was living the dream. I was a single guy, all these tickets. I was a superstar, but it's all emptiness, right?
You still are a superstar.
But what you find is it's all emptiness, right? It was fun. They're great stories, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it was more about entertaining myself than it was to actually make an impact. But great chapter. I enjoyed my time. But to your point,
what I used to do for a living when I was lived down there. You would be quite surprised. So we were talking about this right before we jumped on live. Hannah's probably going to Boise State, and I made the comment that's the ugliest football field on the face of this earth. It is the blue gridiron, like it is. Now I say ugly. Some people like swear by that thing. What are you? Do you have any strong feelings one way or another?
I just found it funny that Folsom High School has had a nice run with their high school football program. I think they've won three state championships in the last, 8 years, I would imagine. And we had a rock star quarterback, Jake. Why am I blanking on Jake's last name? But anyway, he ended up going to University of Washington,
right?
to go play for Chris Peterson up there. And his very first game, because he started as a freshman, was against Boise State. And it was just interesting to watch him on TV. And the commentators say, he's not having a great game. He's probably getting messed up with the color of the field because it is so obnoxious. And they're kind of giving this whole diatribe of how ugly the field is. And I said, do your homework. Did you not look at the Folsom High School? Folsom High School literally has the same football field, the same blue. I mean, it's just like, do your homework. I mean, come on, guys. How much money did you get paid?
I've got to step out. I'll be right back. My dog got herself stuck in our garden hose.
Okay. All right. I'll hang out and just talk with everybody.
See if she can get out. Sunshine, come here. Can you get out of there? Okay, she's okay.
The perils of life.
I mean, I thought I was watching an episode of Cirque du Soleil. I could have lifted up this thing and she would have risen up. She was all tangled in the hose, and it looked like
around. Yeah, too bad they don't have opposing thumbs.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've been on that field out there at Folsom, and it's blue?
Mm-hmm. Maybe not as bad as the Boise blue, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty okay. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my story about Jake playing football.
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Thank you, Randy Pels. Who's calling me? Who on earth is calling me?
Is it your dog calling you?
Oh my goodness gracious. It's probably somebody trying to sell me solar.
Well, hey, it's your bus, man.
Hey, we are going solar, just so you know. I think that's who the number. We are. I'll tell you all about that later. If you want a good solar person to talk to, there may be a kickback in it for me. I'm sorry. I can do this with you. This is the best part. Is I feel like I got this little kindred spirit thing going on with you sometimes. Okay, Steve, let's get down to business. You were at Sunrise. You guys started Men in HD, and I've been to the retreat several times that Sunrise is a part of now. So how did that get started, and then how did Men in HD launch out on its own, so to speak?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Thank you for asking. It's once again, I go back to if somebody had told me to write a script, I wouldn't have written it this way, but it would be good to kind of take you back to before it started, where I went to the Sunrise men's retreat in January. And my running joke is the average age was dead, because it was me and like 3 other guys in their late 30s, and everybody else was like, I don't know, 90. And I say that facetiously, but I can remember a conversation with some folks, and they were like mad. They were mad at us young guys, and they're like, why don't the young guys come? And I'm like, well, can I be honest? Mm-hmm. You don't put on a young guy event. You're in the wrong facility. Looks like you found your speaker last week. It's just not a good model. And so I offered to help. And that's what, a little bit of marketing. It went from 90 to 180. And in fact, I think Quinn Eichhorst was our first worship leader. And I still remember, this is how pathetic we were. The whole screen fell down. We had it mounted to the ceiling and it came down. Luckily nobody was killed year one, but that's just kind of the things that we learn.
I've got a camp story about that. So yeah, because I worked at Hume Lake for years, which, by the way, for those of you out there, we are going to be doing a special edition of Backshed Bible Study next week, where I have a couple of guests who are on staff up at Hume Lake Christian Camps, and we're going to be talking about what is happening there right now, and kind of a way for people to be involved with that. So I worked at Hume Lake for 15 years, and this story preceded me working there. But literally there's it's Tuesday night, and this is like decision night in camp. Every week is, Tuesday night's decision night, and they're going to give the gospel. And this kid is sitting there like, God, I need you to show me a sign that you are real. And, and if you show me a sign, I'll accept Jesus into my life. Like that's what this little 15-year-old kid prays. And in that moment, like literally that moment, the gigantic screen that they have on the back wall that's hung up there, like on one side, whatever was holding it up just let go, and the whole screen just swings down and falls down like a good 30 feet. And just, and the kid like, all right, I surrender. It like walks forward.
Over the years, you ought to like, kind of let that story morph a little bit. Like it swung into the audience, like Phantom of the Opera, and it just hit the kid in the head. And he had this epiphany that Jesus is alive and real, and he walked forward to accept Christ. You really got to throw some extra color onto that story.
And then when he grew up, he made more money and donated the money so Hume could have a new screen.
Exactly. That's funny.
Anyway,
funny.
so you guys, so you start running this thing, and right? I mean, it comes under you. You start using Woodleaf. Like, how long
we made that change? It was really after year one. We just immediately knew that we had outgrown. I mean, just marketing alone, going from 90 to 180, we had outgrown where we were. And I think it was Pastor Rich says, "Hey, you ever looked at this Woodleaf facility?" And got up there, and I kid you not, it was like $3 more a head, to do that upgrade. And I'm all like, I think that's good. Yeah, I think we make this work. And so it was interesting how each year God has, I jokingly say he's taken me to the spiritual woodshed because I would get so caught up in, I want to call it panic, but angst of like, I can't be stealing crackers from the children's ministry. I've got to break even. And these time and time again, I mean, we'd go from 180 to 200, 220, 225, 250, 280, 300, 320. Josh McDowell, we sold out at 400.
That was crazy. And how did you get Josh? Like, that's got to be a slightly miraculous story.
Well, we don't forget who we serve.
Right.
It really was a drop in my lap thing. Because what happens over a few years is you post your website, and I basically each year I say this is who we had, and then I a little blurb, and I might attach the messages and stuff like that. Well, you do that for a few years. Well, next thing you know, when people are like, who are you? Go look at my website. And they go look at the website. Oh, you're pretty legit. You've had Steve Farrar, you've had Josh McDowell, you've had all these people, and so. It was one where I had, someone had told me about his son, Sean McDowell, who is a viola. I think he's a prof there too.
Yeah, and he's just an amazing apologist too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was the one time when Sean came on Friday. It might have been before your time, but Sean came up, and opening night he does his professor skit, which I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he goes, "When I put on my jacket, I am going to be an atheist. And when I take my jacket off, I'm going to be a Christian." And so he puts it on.
Oh yeah, I have not seen
that. He does an amazing argument against Christianity. I mean, you're just kind of like, what? And I kid you not, I had 250 guys, I think at this point. They are like getting mad.
Right.
Because we're passing the microphone around, and they're like, I mean, it was like, I really thought I was going to have like Mutiny on the Bounty kind of thing. Like, this is it. We're never going to have another retreat again. And then he takes that jacket off and he hangs it up, and he proceeds to say, the only question you didn't ask me, because I mean, there must have been 30 questions, and all of them were like, well, what about this? And what about, Deuteronomy, and all this, stuff. And he's like, nobody told me that you love me. And it was just like,
oh.
And I just thought it was such an illustration of, we see it in today's society. It's all about winning the argument than it is about listening and caring for people. And but anyway, the lesson to learn there, because your original question is how did you get Josh, is my joke is you got to go through the Son to get to the Father, right? Just like with Jesus, right?
That's so
And
good.
so once I had Sean, and Sean was in our budget, right? It was kind of simple to maybe I shot Sean a little email that just says, "Hey, would your dad ever be within the parameters?" And so his agents called me, and that's the nice spot is we're beginning to reach that pinnacle where people
Yeah.
are calling us.
Yeah, that's huge.
So his agents called me, and I said, I could probably do X. I think I'd have the numbers to do that. And they're like, we're good with that. He lives in Orange County. It's a quick flight up, and so, and I kid you not, it was an amazing night, and I thought I almost burned his scroll up because it was the whole Mission Possible theme, and so I had this smoke going.
Yep, I remember it. I was there.
I'm surprised he'll ever talk to me again. But yeah, it was just neat to see those things unfold. But I shared this in October. I said, I think the part to me that's amazing about that whole Men in HD chapter is that it kept growing, and then we eventually went from it going all through Sunrise to going through NAB, the conference, because then that afforded us the opportunity to use their accounting systems. We could set up a DBA. We're able to use their insurance policy. They actually floated us money if we needed to make deposits down on speakers or Woodleaf. They would pre-fund me, and then we would pay them back when all the the weekend hit. So it was a great run. I would have never thought of making a change, but Rick Weber, I believe, is retiring and moving to Southern Cal, and he pitched the idea of, hey, any thoughts of going solo? And I was all like, what? Are you nuts? And because there's a whole legal piece of 501(c)(3) that I didn't know if I wanted to open that door, and it was very apparent very quickly that it would be good if I brought this back under the Sunrise umbrella, because now we've kind of figured it out. We figured out the accounting piece of this. We know we need to do a DBA. I personally want to be under the umbrella of another organization. I don't want to be my own organization, because I think, all of us are capable of failure. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that I'm accountable to somebody. I come under the authority of somebody. And sometimes when you kind of create your own 501(c), it's, look at me, I've got it all together, and there's ego and pride. And I just think it's better to have a humble heart and come under the authority of somebody else. And so
and it's
that's
so
why I made the pitch.
Nice to have just the accountability and somebody else dealing with the back end of things. And so if you all out there don't know what we're alluding to, is I'd say it was probably 4 or 5 months ago, Steve reached out to us at Sunrise and just said, would you consider, I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, it's around the first of the year. Mm-hmm. And would Sunrise elders consider taking Men in HD in back under the umbrella of Sunrise? And so of course, shortly after this COVID hits and chaos hits, and we go into a little bit of survival mode for a couple of months, but we were able to finally address this as an elder team, I believe back in May, and it was just a unanimously, we were excited, like what a great opportunity to have a ministry that was launched out of Sunrise, and that can continue to have great reach out beyond just Sunrise, but to have you under our fold. And we don't know what else could come out of it, but who knows, I think there's some great opportunities. So we're in the process, or our pastor is Canadian. We are in the process of setting up a bank account.
That would be the bus running you over right now.
I've thrown myself under the bus so many times. It's nice and warm under there on a cold winter's day, and it's got good clearance. So
there you go. That's what's important,
right? So we're in the process of doing all the bank accounts and reconciliations and DBAs and all that. And but, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this transfer happened at a good time because we've had a couple of good years. And so we've got seed money that allows us to run it through Sunrise, but not necessarily have any financial risk on Sunrise part. In fact, I think that was probably one of my biggest learnings with NAB is that there was one year I tried to do 2 weekends and and of course it was right after Josh McDowell, so I turned away. I had 400 guys and I turned away 190. And I'm all like, look at me, I got this big old, ego thinking, oh, we're got 600 guys. We're ready for 2 weekends. Yeah, I lost my shirt. Man, I lost my shirt. I think I was in the hole $18,000. And I ended up talking to Woodleaf and they cut the bill in half. I had maybe accrued $5,000 or $6,000 of buffer, and we used all of that up. And I went to NAB and I says, listen, I'll give you the first profits for next year, but I don't have the $3,000. And they're like, not a problem. We'll take care of you. But in that, they said, we're going to have you sign a memo of understanding with NAB. You in turn need to do that with each of your churches. And we were at that point, we're at 12, 14 churches. And so it's been good to kind of take that financial risk and kind of move it to the churches. And so, if they commit to 48 and now I have a budget, right? I know what I can do. It's kind of a little bit of the Hume Lake model, right?
Yeah.
And so that affords me a little bit of knowing my boundaries of where I can spend. And most of the time, if a church comes in at 44 and they'd committed to 48, I've got some other church that oversold and it washes itself pretty easily.
Most of the time,
exactly. It's not a perfect world, but we're in a space where, and I was sharing this with, I think it's Kim in your finance office. I said, we're in a space because, Woodleaf went off the market. And I think Woodleaf's going to be off the market for more than a couple of years. I'll bet you it's 5 years. In fact, I don't know. I have no inside track, but if you've got 20 Young Life properties in the nation and Woodleaf is number 20 and you're in a spot where you need to fund the other 19, I could see them spinning it off. I don't know that. I've never heard that, but there's a part of me as a business person that just says, we might not ever get it back. So when we make this switch, let's plan that it's permanent and not this is temporary until Woodleaf comes back. We just don't know. And so this move
to the camping industry is just getting hard hit right now with COVID.
Yeah.
It is borderline catastrophic for the camping industry.
Yeah, so I'm excited about next year with Zephyr. In fact,
we're going to Zephyr Cove, and
so if you go to the website, I got to tell you this: if you go to the website, you know how I've got all the years listed. So like, here's Josh was this year. So for 2020, I've got a picture of Mr. COVID.
Oh my gosh! Okay, stand by.
I just cracked myself up.
Where? I don't see it on there.
You got to go to past conferences, and I think you can see past speakers. And there'll be a 2020 where it's just got the picture of the COVID virus.
Oh my goodness, you are out of control.
See, sometimes I just crack myself up. The good news is he was cheap.
This is what I love about you. Oh my goodness, this is a great website.
Thank you. Yeah, it's morphed over the time, but it's a great resume. When people ask who are you, we're like, go look at the website.
Yeah.
And, boy, it's like an automatic resume. So
but
so we're at Zephyr Point, Zephyr Cove next April. It's the week after Easter. If I can give it a shameless plug,
please.
We've locked in Kurt Harlow, who's one of the senior pastors at Bayside. And I got to tell you, and I was sharing this with Kurt, so I did an event with him at our existing church. And it's hard to find a pastor on the West Coast who can speak to men. And usually I've got to pull them out of Texas or pull them out of the South. And I think Kurt is probably one of the best on the West Coast of speaking to men. And so I'm excited about this chapter. Obviously, we're maxed out at 300, so it's going to be see how quickly things sell through. And what I like about Zephyr is that it's got it's more geared towards hotel than it is towards cabins that were designed for junior hires. So the price goes up a little bit, but the sleeping accommodations are a gazillion times better.
And not to mention, it is arguably the most beautiful point on the edge of Lake Tahoe. I mean, the time I went and checked out their facility, because we have an old friend in the camping industry that worked there, and that place is stunning.
Stunning. So we're looking forward to it, and I think, and I was sharing this with Kim, I says, even if there's a couple of years here where we're learning, and maybe we go in the whole grand or something, it's not a big deal. We've got enough built up to where we can make some mistakes and learn.
I have seen what you have in the account.
God knew that we were going to have a transition time, and so
that 100,000 is great.
Wow, I don't know who does your books, but I'd like to get to know them better.
Okay, maybe there's an extra zero on that, but anyway.
But yeah, I mean, so I think we've got some space to learn, and frankly, it's moving around 300 people is not easy. So you've got to learn traffic patterns and how do you feed them, and there's so many variables that come into play to putting this together that you've got to work your cadence. It's you got to book the facility. You got that done. Okay, now we got to book the speaker. Okay, got that done. Got the band. Got that done. We're going up, I think August 1st with the leadership team, and it's just like, all right, what do you need in the meeting hall? Do we need more TVs to broadcast? Do we need different microphones? Oh, how are we going to do games? How are we going to, how do we split this apart? Because we've got, different hotels and stuff. So it's going to be a real learning for us.
Now, is it true that one of the Saturday afternoon activities is you give everybody $5 to go out and see if they're able to get next year's tuition paid for? And like whoever comes back, or whoever comes back with the most from that $5
gets like a comp kind of a thing.
Right.
I like that. Yeah. Can I bill Sunrise for that? I'm just I've seen that done before at Biola's. Like you start off with a potato, and then you go down to Hollywood and you like trade somebody for like a shoe. Or
bigger and better.
Bigger and better, exactly.
Bigger and better. Here's a little peek, I think. Did this go up here?
Yep.
Of, the old COVID-19 right there.
That'd be Mr. COVID to you.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so let's transition in our last few minutes here, and we got about 10 or 15 minutes left. But Steve, I actually got kind of half-heartedly invited. But you've been doing a study on, I think, Saturday mornings with some guys, and God's been working on you guys, especially around the life of David.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe take us to 2 Samuel a little bit with this?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity before I forget. But this has been an interesting journey for me personally on Saturday mornings, because I was all about the conference, that was my thing. That was my, and one of the things in coming into Folsom that I started to open the door to was maybe I could do a neighborhood Bible study. And it really started to turn into about 4 young dads. And we started meeting at Starbucks, and 4 is probably now 12. But some of these guys have been with me for 5-6 years now. And I know there's a couple of non-believers that come faithfully. And so it isn't like I water it down. It's a faith-based study, but it is really about, it's less about verse by verse and more about, this is what David went through. What can we learn from it? And how do we change? How do we become better fathers? How do we become better husbands? And so it's been an interesting journey for me personally, because I had to change. I had to adapt and be more transparent. And I know for some people are like, "Oh, come on, Steve, you're Mr. Transparency." It's like, no, I can hide with the best of them.
Right. Sometimes it's easy to act transparent and make people think that you're
absolutely.
and you can hold your favorite things,
Yeah, pay no
off.
attention to the man
Right.
behind the screen kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so it's been good for me, and it's been good to kind of draw men out, because I'll teach maybe about 20 minutes, and then it's a requirement that if you come, you talk. And so I'll have 2 or 3 questions, and we'll work the circle, and then we'll work the circle, back on the second question, and everybody talks, and people learn from one another. And next thing you know, people are like helping other people without me in the mix of it, and hey, I'm looking to do a refi, and well, Josh Tapp's there. And so he's
Right.
like, hey, let me help you with that. And oh, I've got this legal experience. And so somebody's helping them write a legal thing. And so it's just amazing how, in spite of me, that God makes these connections. And so guys are helping guys. And so it's just been a real neat process for me to kind of go through personally. So, but anyway, yes, we have been on David since January 1. You're like, oh yeah, this is like 3 or 4 months. Oh yeah, I think I'm halfway done. Quite honestly, I actually think, because I always lay out the year. That was one of the things Dan always taught me, was that, lay out the whole year. And so for Dan, I would take the fall, right? That was our running joke. I'll take the fall for you. And I would prepare 12 to 14 weeks.
I just got that. I'm so slow.
Yes, so slow.
It's the heat in the shed.
Keep up with me, man. Keep up.
The heat in the shed is killing me.
But so anyway, I've been taking these guys slowly through, obviously slowly, through David's life, and we have seen, his humble upbringing, from shepherd boy to cheese delivery dude to rock thrower to playing the harp in the palace. So he learns how how to run a nation thing, and you just see this man after God's own heart. Just this whole trajectory just is taking off, and then like this past Saturday, we finally pinnacled. We pinnacled, and it was the adultery, and it was just a fascinating conversation to that, because I know there's a couple of guys in the group that have gone through that, and just to have them share, what were the early warning signs. What were the things that, these younger dads can learn about. And so it's just, we've reached a point where we're brutally honest with each other. And, but this morning, where I thought I would take you is one of my lessons we did probably 3 or 4 weeks ago that just really struck a chord with me personally. And I was sharing this a little bit with Cliff, that it's in 2 Samuel 6, and it's not the most well-known story. It's not the sling. It's not the whatever. But it deals with, and I'll frame it here a little bit. It deals with David going to go get the ark. And for the young dads in my group, I was just like, you remember watching Indiana Jones, and they're going to take the lid off the ark, and while that is totally fake, the representation of the ark is pretty close.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the box size, the poles and the rings and the angels over the top of it. I'm like, well, they did their homework. That's actually probably biblically accurate. Right. And so suddenly all my nerd, Star Wars guys are like, oh, no, that really struck a chord with me. And but we started to kind of unpack this, because the ark had been stored for 60 years, and in somebody's barn, their back shed, kind of thing.
Well, it was
like,
a warehouse.
I think it's right there behind you right now. Sorry, it's your dog. My bad.
It's very small. It's very small.
Don't leave it out in the rain, things shrink, right?
Right.
But if you think about what was in that ark, and as ornate as it was, what did it have? It had the 10 Commandments. It had Aaron's rod, which was a dead stick, but it was growing a leaf. And it had a jar of manna. And you think about those 3 things, and I think to myself, how important. I mean, this is symbolism, right, of how important these things are. So the symbolism is being in God's word, trusting that God can bring life out of a dead stick, right? And that he will provide, right? No matter what it is. And granted, it might not be filet mignon, but you think about the imagery of that box. And so David wanted to bring it into Jerusalem. He was setting up the new capital, and he makes the move. In fact, I love it. If I could, I'm going to read it off my phone here.
Okay.
2 Samuel 6 says, David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. Okay, just process that for a second. Right. 30,000 men are going to go get a box. I don't know. I'm thinking 4, 8 guys are probably plenty, but no. He's going with 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, who sits enthroned on the cherubim. And they carried the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Aaron, were driving the new cart with the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. So you're sitting there, you're like, okay, all right, nothing bad yet.
Right.
Story turns. And David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before the Lord with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals. So you can imagine, this is a party going on. And when they came to a threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took a hold of it, for the oxen had stumbled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the ark of God. And David was angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah. And that place is called Para-Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, how can the ark of the Lord come to me? So David was not willing to take the ark of the Lord into the city of David, but David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. And the ark there, ark of the Lord, remained in that house, Obed-Edom, 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom. And I was sharing with the guys that you sit there and you go, what is that? Why does God take out Uzzah for touching the ark?
Right.
And then David's angry, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I can kind of get that response. David had a plan, but it was David's plan. It was David's desire to bring it to him. And it was David's parade. And so this thing unfolds and it almost falls off the cart. And Uzzah, who's doing the right thing, he doesn't want this beautiful, ornate box to fall over, sticks out his hand. And the penalty for him is death, and you're like, how does a loving God do that? And
right,
so
it's
David,
not fair.
It's not fair, exactly. And so David is angry, and he's sitting there going, I get it. I get why he's angry. And so I was just sharing with the guys how important it is that we understand that what was going on in this parade was not biblical. If you go back to earlier books of the Old Testament, God calls out specifically that there are to be golden poles, rings. It's only to be carried by the Levites. No cart, no oxen, sacrifice every 6 feet, kind of thing. So it's pretty well laid out. The problem came is that David had not done his homework. David had asked God to bless his plan without David going and doing the homework.
Right.
And I think for us personally, we need to understand that, David's reaction, I get it because I'm human too. I can get angry. But I think what's important here is that, one, we need to treat God with reverence, especially in this chapter of grace in which we live.
Yeah.
And far too many times, I think we've kind of liquefied the gospel too much, and we need to be able to treat God with the holiness and reverence that he demands of us. But also we need to make sure that we're just not asking God to bless our plans, and we do our homework and say, is this scripturally right? Let me go talk to other, I call them council of wisdom people. Is this on the right track? Shoot holes in this. What am I thinking wrong here? And we see where it goes.
Right. And I look in one of the comments down here, like, isn't that exactly, Valerie says, what we all do? We make a plan, we ask God to jump on board. I've always, I've always joked about having the church planning meetings where we get through the meeting and at the end we ask God to bless the ideas we've come up with,
Yeah.
rather than that stop and seek the Lord for what he wants first. And I think the other thing that hits me with what you're saying here is, even as we read scripture, we often, if you come across this passage and read through it just standing on its own, you're going to walk away and go, that Yahweh is so unfair. Why is he making a big deal out of this?
Yeah.
Without understanding context. It's like context.
Yep. I mean, from all apparent purposes, David's doing the right thing.
Right.
What, and people
From
would
what
look
you can
at
see
it,
at the surface.
Exactly. You go, his love is not in question here. Right. That to me is the key part here. Is David was known for his military prowess, his poetic artistry, his leadership abilities. He was leading the whole nation into a spiritual relationship with God.
Right.
Name me another king that's done that.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And so here he is learning a lesson that to love God is to obey God.
Right.
And I think far too many times, and I speak for myself, that we have a tendency to, ask God to bless our plans and then, hope it all works out. And it doesn't work out, I'll throw my temper tantrum. And then I'll that didn't work. But ultimately, God is asking for us to obey. And if his word says, use the poles, use the rings, carry it, give it the reference it needs, because everybody's watching. Everybody's watching. And so my question I offered to the guys was, so what are the poles and rings that you're ignoring? What are the things in your life where you're asking God to bless you, but you're not doing the poles and the rings, right? And so you've got your own agenda, you've got your own carts, and you're not giving God what he's asking, which is obedience. And so, but anyway, that being said, what you see happen now is that, David turns on the blinker on the cart and he goes and dumps the ark for 3 months in a barn and goes and does his homework. Part of it's studying, part of it's talking to the priest. He figures out the right way to do it. And then he does it again, but this time he does it right. And he comes into town and he is celebrating like nobody's business. He's dancing around. He probably got a shirt off. He is thoroughly enjoying the moment for the majesty of it all and the beauty and the honoring and the reverence and having learned from his mistake, bringing that ark in. And if we were to read the rest of the passage here, was the whole aspect that he comes in and he is so full of joy. And he is in love with his God. And I know for myself, there are days that is not, I'm not dancing. I might be kicking the wall or beating up a nail or something like that out of sheer frustration. But this is a guy with pure and unadulterated joy. And it begs that question too that I asked the guys is, what's blocking your joy? What is it inside of you that you're holding on to that doesn't allow you to truly celebrate that God is good? God has put that house over your head. He's the one who gave you those wonderful kids. He's the one who helps you pay your bills. He's the one who's putting food on your table. And we lose sight of how good God is. And you sit there and I use the illustration of, I'm sure you've read, I think it's book, What's So Amazing About Grace.
Love it.
I'm trying to remember. The author is.
Well, that would be Philip Yancey.
Yeah, Yancey. But Yancey.
I hated the book.
Well, actually, you know what? It wasn't that one. It was the other one. It was the follow-up one, When the Darkness Never Lifts.
Okay, right.
And there's a line in there where he says, "You're not truly there until you're holding your dead, lifeless daughter on the side of the road and you say, 'To God be the glory.'" And I'm like, I'm not there yet. Yeah. I still hold on to stuff. That's not your child. That's my child.
Yep.
You know, that's not your house. That's my house. And so I know that I am still a work in progress. I realize I'm still a sinner. I'm quite good at it, by the way.
I may be better than you.
But here is David celebrating, and we need to be asking ourselves our question: where's my joy? Where does it come from? Or does my happiness come from something else that's fake and not real? Right. But I want to leave with this one last thought, because I know we're running up against time here, but I want to capture this last piece. I won't read it, but so David realizes what he did was wrong. He changes, he learns, he has parade part 2, right? And he's leading this dance, and he's so excited. His own wife got upset at him.
Right.
Michal gets
Michal.
mad. Yeah, she's all like,
woof.
Well, you're an idiot. You know, you're the king. You know, this is how a king behaves.
Dancing
right?
half naked out there in front of everyone.
Exactly.
I'm embarrassed by
you. You're doing that for the girls, aren't you? Right? I mean, you can almost read it.
Right.
She is bitter. And she says, you look like a fool out there. We have to remember that Michal was the daughter of Saul. And if you've done any studying of the life of Saul, Saul is all about image. It's right. all about how he looks. I did this because, you know, I went ahead and sacrificed without the priest because, you know, there's always an excuse, or, forgive me, Father, you know, it was their fault, you know, kind of a thing.
Yep.
And we have to understand that for Michal, she grew up in a house that had no joy. It was all about image. It was all about perfection. It was all about how I look. And I was challenging the guys. I says, you know, we need to understand that sometimes we're going to be around people that have, they don't know what joy looks like. They don't understand what it means to be fully embracing the loving God and what he's done for us and how much he changes us, and the gratefulness that we should have on a daily basis for his grace and how he changes us. And I wrote these last few things to the guys, and I'll let this sit in the crock pot for a little bit. But I wrote down, I says, the better you know where you stand with the Lord, the freer you'll be. The freer you are before the Lord, the more confident you'll become. And David had to learn obedience just like we have to learn obedience. So I challenge the guys to, what are the pulls? What are the rings in your own life that you're not obeying? God tells you need to obey. And we blow it off, and right. God's not asking us to do that. So, but anyway, that's where I thought I'd take you in your back shed today. And
thank you.
That's 2 Samuel 6, but I loved it. I to me, it was real impactful, because I am certainly guilty of getting mad at God because he didn't do it the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not nearly as obvious or overt as that, because we've learned how to, you know, cloud it with, or, you know, decorate our frustration with God with different kinds of words and phrases that make us, you know,
look holy.
Right. Yeah. You know, but you know, it's what's happening down here in my heart, and my heart just says, you know, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And we get that posture. My little daughter, who's 2, who isn't using too many words yet, but she knows how to just go like, you know, and we posture ourselves with God that way.
Yeah. Are there any questions with the audience that?
Well, I can tell you, we have some comments out there, and it's fantastic. So Randy Pell says we should all be dancing now with joy in the Lord, like King David did, even with this virus, especially with this virus.
Exactly. Good point. Yep.
And by the way, Kathy Wayne Scott says hello. So
hey, Kathy, how are you?
Good to see you today. Sharon Soden, great message, Steve. We have so much to learn from David's heart for God. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are kind of some of the big comments. Valerie Connor wanted to know, is Mint and HD your full-time job, Steve?
Yeah, that's funny because I get asked that question when I go pitch it to other churches. They're all like, so who else works for you? Tell us about your staff. Who do you report into? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much me. No, it is a group of guys that just volunteer their time, and they've got certain giftings. I've got one who I call him Radar O'Reilly, a former Sunrise person who helps me with all things registration. I never worry about it.
That guy so much.
Yeah, and then of course, I've got Tall Paul, and he's all things accounting. So I never touch the money. Which has always been a desire of mine, is not to be accused of that. But no, I after spending 20 years in the gasoline industry with 7-Eleven and with Union 76, I chose to leave a different company at the wrong time. In fact, I think I remember quite clearly, don't take this job, and I ended up taking it. And
I did one of those.
Yeah, so it set me on a 4-year misery course. And I ended up resigning, and then the market crash of 2007 happened, and I was trapped. I was trapped in middle management. I was trapped in middle income, and nobody would touch me unless I wanted to move to Arkansas, and that wasn't on the radar for me and the young family. So, so I muddled around trying to reinvent myself, and so I would get a contract every once in a while. I'd go do it. Contract would come to an end. Hey, we're done with the training portion. I'd roll off, and I embraced the stay-at-home dad thing. I ended up being PTA president, volleyball coach at the junior high. I kept myself busy. In fact, I was probably more busy in those chapters, but I got a call from a buddy of mine saying, hey, we've got this asset management problem, and I was curious if you'd want to come in and help us out. He goes, 90 days, at Christmas money. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll give it a try. And here I am 6 years later. Not only having fixed the problem, but took over. They began to realize that the problem was the person leading the team, and so they escorted her away, and I took over. And then I took over desktop support, and I took over facilities, and so I am actually in a better place financially and career-wise than I was in the gasoline industry ever before, and that is God reinventing me into a project manager position, to where, quite honestly, at the end of the day, I shut off the laptop and I am free. Versus others.
Wonderful.
It is, and part of that's a mindset. Part of that is that says the issues will always be there. They'll be there tomorrow. And so as long as you're not like blowing stuff off, you just realize it's prioritizing what's the most important. But in this, I'm able to have I would call it free time, but at least when I can shut it off, and in fact, I was sharing this with some friends about the whole, isn't it great not driving into the office downtown? I'm like, yeah, it is. But, that 45-minute drive home was actually my decompression time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I would come into the house and I would not think about work. And I could, okay, let's put some thought into the men's conference, or let's do this and let's think through this. And
I've talked to you several times on that commute.
Yes. I try to maximize my 40 minutes, but it is a decompression time. And it's a wonderful, I hate to say I love traffic, but it was just I didn't realize how much value it played in my own life, because now in a stay-at-home thing, it's kind of like, there's my laptop, I'm bored, I'll go do some work. And if you can't discipline yourself to shut it off and walk away, you're not going to have boundaries. In fact, there's a book called Boundaries for Leaders, which talks just to that topic of you got to learn how to say, I can only do so much. And I love the idea. I'd love to whisper in your ear, but I can't take that on.
Right. Oh man. Oh, it's hard for us people pleasers to say no to people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we gauge our whole, I know for me personally, I gauge my whole identity and how people view me. And so if you don't like me, then it's back to that. And I've shared the story before where, I was 12 having an asthma attack, and the first words out of my mouth or my mom's mouth was not, how can I help? It was, where have you sinned? And you can only imagine growing up with that mindset where it all becomes about performance. It's all about the look. It's all about how you behave. And it got to the big meanie. And frankly, it has taken me decades to break out of that mindset.
Gosh. Well, so many things come to mind when you say that. I don't even know where to start. But
Yeah.
I one story that comes to mind about that is just growing up with this understanding of grace. It was about 11 or 12 years ago that Stephen Curtis Chapman and his wife Mary Beth, when their little girl, 5-year-old girl, was just tragically killed, in
Yep.
an
Yep.
accident where their son backed over them.
Yep.
And there's a part that Mary Beth tells in her book that she wrote, where as they were racing off to the hospital
Mhm.
in the car, they stop and roll down the window and they look at his son. Stephen looks at his son and he just goes, "It's not your fault."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they race off to the hospital, and just to just speak that grace,
Yep.
into him at that moment,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
opposite side of that is,
I can remember that weekend to the day because I had announcements at Sunrise that weekend. And I remember telling that story. And I said, I hope today is the day that you hear God roll down the window and tell you that he loves you.
yeah,
Because that's, if you can hear that, it'll change your life forever.
yeah. It's one of the most powerful moments of grace, and I think you quoted it a lot better than I did. But but that actually book and incident actually had a profound impact on our life when the book came out shortly after we had lost our daughter,
Mm.
and but it also moved us towards adoption. So yeah, that's a
Yep.
whole
Yep.
much longer story, but for
Yep.
another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This has just been a really cool blessing to have you here. My screen has gone blank, which usually happens when my computer starts to overheat. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to pray for you. We'll do a couple quick closing announcements and move on our way and get back to all that consulting that you're doing.
Exactly.
Oh, Father, it's such a joy to be here with Steve. I just always sense such a like-mindedness with him. I thank you for just his humor, his joy, but I thank you for his willingness to learn from you and to not be done. As it's so easy for us to slow down or whatever. But God, I just thank you that he is constantly allowing you to work on him, and so would you bless him? Thank you for Men in HD. We're excited to see what you have for it as it carries on under Sunrise. And Lord, would you be honored? Would you be the one that's honored through it all? And pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Oh, well, so for all the rest of y'all out there, we will, let's see here. We will be back next week, and we'll be, it's a special edition of the Backshed Bible Study because I will be recording it ahead of time, because at the time when we are doing the Backshed at 10 a.m. on Monday, I will be hopefully somewhere in the middle of Nevada on I-80, driving 80 because that's the speed limit out there.
Exactly.
And but I'm heading on vacation out to Colorado next week, and so we're recording early. I'm actually going to be recording that coming up here this Wednesday. So that's coming up. Remind you to join us, if you would, for Pastors Live on Wednesday at 2:00 right here on Facebook Live. And Luke Miller Podcast debuts on Thursday in the afternoon, sometime around 2:30. The Beat podcast from our worship arts department comes out on Friday. It's going to be a good week, and we thank you all for joining us. And with that, we say goodbye, and we will see you back here or back at Sunrise. And right now, I got to find this button where it says stop live stream. Ready? Go.